All right, we are live.
What?
Hey, if you are a wholesaler or aspiring wholesaler, then I'm sure you're aware that there's been a lot of regulation, a lot of laws. There's a big movement for anti-wholesaling. No?
This one.
Oh, right here.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be talking all about this topic because it's of great concern to me and everybody here in this discussion that we're going to be having here, because there is this movement that's been happening over the past couple of years to regulate and even ban, a lot of cases, ban wholesaling. There's a lot of negativity around our industry right now. And for everybody in this room, including me, this is of great concern because we love this industry. We've helped build this industry. Wholesaling no longer is this obscure technique. It is now a full-blown business practice, thanks to a lot of people like us that are educating, helping people get into the business, learn how to do it successfully. But we need to kind of step up our game. We need to do some things differently. We're going to be talking all about why this is happening, what we can do differently as an industry, and then also how we can organize and unite. We have a big announcement. I've been talking a little bit about it. We're going to talk about how we can form, or how we are forming, an association and kind of talk a little bit about that. But I came all the way here to Brent's studio in Phoenix. We've got Pace, Morby, Brent, Daniels, and Jamil, everybody here. And I asked these guys, hey, can we sit down and talk about this? And they've all agreed to dedicate a lot of their time into this move that we're doing here, this association we're creating, and how we can take the wholesaling industry to a whole new level. And we have to. It's not like, yeah, it'd be a nice thing to do. We kind of have to, because the powers that play right now that do not want us operating, they have a lot behind them. They have a lot of money behind them. They have a big push behind them. And if we don't, we're going to get steamrolled out of existence or highly regulated to where it just becomes almost impossible to do the business. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for all that you do. I know each of you personally, love you guys, and especially what you stand for, how you promote this industry, how you're helping people learn it. And I think a lot of the problem, we'll get into this in a second, I think a lot of the problem is more of misinformation or maybe bad education, less so than malicious or bad intent, trying to do wrong to sellers. It's more just, there's just a lot of misinformation. And so maybe we can help fix that. Yeah. Right. Yes. If we all work together, we can fix that. So thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you for coming in from Puerto Rico.
All the way from Puerto Rico.
You have been trumpeting this. You have been calling it out. You have been posting videos about it. And I love, the video, the part of the video that I love the best that you put out was you're showing this article, and it's somebody blasting wholesaling, and it's a guy standing in front of a condemned house. That's what we're talking about.
Falling apart,
I mean, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about going after that 6 to 10% of the real estate market that's in distress. The 12 million plus homes based on the 2020 U.S. Census, 12 million single-family properties have been vacant for over a year. Who's going to go out there? Who's going to be proactive? Who's going to go try to have a quality conversation with those property owners and do something special? Everybody that lives in a neighborhood that has that scar on the neighborhood, that vacant house that people are breaking into, that's always a cause for concern. Who's going to go after that if it's not us? Who's going to go out there and try to, really rejuvenate these neighborhoods and have these conversations with oftentimes very emotional property owners? It's not going to be real estate agents. It's not going to be fix and flippers. It's not going to be people that are building their rental portfolio. It's wholesalers.
Yeah. But the problem is that, I know that, our industry knows that, but there is so much negativity in the media and the public opinion right now with regulators, with the consumer protection agencies. And they're painting an entirely different picture of what the wholesaling industry is.
Let's talk a little bit about the picture that they're painting, because I take a little bit of it. I take a huge issue.
I know you do.
With it.
So do I.
Because of the targets in which they are and who they're targeting with these articles and with these news groups. Okay. Because here's what I've been involved with. I've been in a transaction where a national home builder, publicly traded national home builder, was in contract to purchase property from me. And they took a portion of that contract and assigned it. Completely okay for them to have assigned it, to have made a profit on assigning that portion of their contract, then using those proceeds to close the rest of the deal that they were buying from me. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit were made. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of profit were made on that one transaction. Where was Bloomberg? Where was the nightly news?
Where was
NAR? Where was
NAR?
NAR?
Yeah.
What ends up happening, and I'm sorry to pull this out this quickly, but it's when it's a minority, when it's a young minority person that is out there hustling their butts to try to make some money, and people catch wind that it's a minority who went out there and made $20,000 on flipping a contract on a house, people take issue to it.
And you said this probably 18 months ago. You said the exact
1000%.
same thing.
1000%. That's what's happening right now. They're railroading it because they're upset that minorities are involved in the business, and they're trying to regulate it so that they're out of it.
Well, Philadelphia. That's when it happened. That's when you said it the last time.
Absolutely. It upsets the hell out of me.
Yep.
Okay, so who are the groups that are actually running the anti-wholesaling movement? Is it realtors? Is it Bloomberg? Who is it that's actually running it?
So let's talk about that, because that's really an important distinction to make. There's really two groups that take concern. One is the consumer protection agencies, and their job is to take complaints, investigate, figure out if there's bad practice going on.
But their job is to not just go and randomly choose basically a niche. Somebody is complaining to them enough.
They will not even investigate unless there's enough complaints, because they can only do so much. So they take on cases that have the most complaints. They're not even who's really up in arms about this. It's really being led by NAR and real estate agents who are against wholesalers.
Who is NAR?
The National Association of Realtors.
So that's
largest
lobbying
group in the country.
Yeah. Say that again.
They're the largest lobbying group in America.
So they are unified against wholesaling, is what's going on.
Yes.
You're saying that they're larger than NRA?
No, that's what I'm talking about. NAR.
Oh,
yeah.
NAR. You're saying National Rifle Association.
No. So National Association of Realtors.
Okay.
That's who we're talking about.
But they're saying they're the biggest lobbying group. So are they bigger than the National Rifle Association?
They are the largest lobbying group in America, is NAR.
Typically, the National Rifle Association helps choose our president.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're talking about an even larger lobbying group now railroading an industry that we're all involved in.
Every single one of these.
I'm just trying to frame this.
That's right. So every single one of these legislations that have happened, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Illinois, Oklahoma, they've all been led by NAR. NAR led the charge. They led the legislation.
So how does it benefit them though, Jerry? How does this benefit
NAR? Well, that's
NAR?
the thing. Like what Brent just said was, okay, we're servicing these vacant, dilapidated, homes.
Ugly properties.
Right. But a lot of real estate agents that are against wholesalers, and NAR especially, they want to bring wholesaling under their umbrella. Because now it has to follow the agent broker model. They get a piece of the money. You cannot be fees. You cannot be a part of the MLS unless you're a member of NAR.
Right.
So NAR just adds, 500,000 new agents under their umbrella, or how many ever there are wholesalers, if they get this done, if this happens. So to me, it's just a big money grab. Because the reality is we don't really compete with agents.
No.
We're talking to different type of
client. 12 million vacant properties. There's no agents going after those properties.
Right. But think about it. If all wholesalers were required to be licensed, you would have to follow the agent broker model. Your broker would get a piece of commission.
So let's say I sign a deal for 20 grand to Jamil. My broker is going to take
his cut,
a 70-30 split or a whatever split.
You would have to be a member of NAR because they monopolize the real estate agency. NAR.
So I'm paying dues, I'm paying fees, I'm paying broker split.
Yeah.
I'm basically an agent at that point.
Yeah. So what is NAR doing? They got three big tactics they're doing. The first tactic is they're making this argument that wholesalers are no different than agents in the way that they operate. And how are they making that justification? How are they claiming that that's the case? Well, what they're saying is wholesalers are sourcing deals for buyers. And agency law, all licensing law in every state says that if you're not a principal in the transaction, you have to have a license. That's got nothing to do with NAR. That's just licensing law. And if you don't, you get a fine and there's penalties, right? Well, what NAR is saying is they're saying this whole assignment of contract is a legal loophole. What's really happening is the wholesaler is not really a principal. And a principal is what? The seller
or the buyer.
The buyer, which if you're wholesaling, you now become the assignor.
Right.
And then the third principal is the assignee, which is the cash buyer. Those are the only three people that are a principal in a wholesaling transaction. What NAR is saying is they're saying they don't actually have the money. They're saying they're buyers, but they're not buyers. They don't actually have backing, funds or backing, which is like a big thing Keegley does. They don't put down earnest money. They got a ton of loopholes in their contracts to back out, and they're not really a principal in the contract. Now, if that argument holds out and they win that argument, then all wholesalers everywhere will need to be licensed, because the regulators and the licensing boards are going to say, yeah, we get you're assigning your contract, but what you're really doing is performing a service for another non-principal, and that's that's a non-commissioned license or a non-licensed commission.
So essentially, they're calling it brokering.
They're calling it brokering. That's one argument, is they're calling it brokering.
Yep.
And so
you were saying there's three
there's
things.
three. That's the big one.
Okay.
The second one is that what wholesalers do is illegal, and there's even a big push right now that it's fraudulent. Now, illegal would be civil law. So a seller says, I was harmed in some way. That's civil court.
They took my equity. I didn't know what they were doing. Blah, blah, blah.
They didn't close, and I paid for a moving truck, and it hurt me in some way. That would be a civil law. But
there's some legitimacy to that, to be honest.
For sure.
Right. I just bought a deal in North Carolina, that exact situation. A wholesaler gets a house under contract. The lady moves out of the house, pays for a moving truck. When we get on the phone with her, she's in a sleeping bag inside the house. Right. So we can agree what you said at the very beginning of the show is, hey, we've got some stuff. We got to get unified and make sure that there are things that are done properly. So that argument number two actually has some legitimacy to it.
The problem here is that the push by NAR is that this is a collective issue, not an individual issue.
Right.
And that's like saying all real estate agents are good or all real estate agents are bad. No, there's good and there's bad.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So that's the problem. So, but the real issue here is that the push is also not that there's just illegal activity, but fraudulent. And when fraud is involved, that's now criminal.
That's prison time.
That's criminal.
Right.
That's a whole nother issue. So how are they saying that wholesaling is illegal and fraudulent? Well, when you say I'm a cash buyer and you're not, they're making an argument that you're lying and deceiving and misleading the seller. There's a disclosure issue here. Agency is really big on disclosure. You have to say what you say and do what you do and be honest about it. Right. So that's a big one. You're lying to sellers. They really don't like the contracts a lot of wholesalers are using because of all the
I've seen
clauses,
some really bad ones. No earnest money. They can cancel any they want. No cure period. Like literally nothing.
Inspection ends on
this is
entire
time. The big one here is if I don't find a cash buyer, I can back out of the contract.
Right,
that is not a legit contract if you have that in there.
That's an option.
Right.
In all essence, that was what, and if it was disclosed to a seller that you're optioning it, trying to find a buyer, that could legitimize that methodology of doing a transaction.
Okay, so their third argument is that the contract that a lot of wholesalers are using is illegitimate.
Yes, that's a big argument. So you've got you're lying and deceiving. You're not a cash buyer, and then the other thing is intent. So when something's going to go to court, they're going to look at intent. So hey, I had a contract. So what? What was your intent?
Right.
So intent meaning, do you actually have any kind of ability to close on a contract? Or did you disclose to the seller what you were really doing? Right now, this is different. I mean, guys, everybody listening here, I had someone comment on some of the stuff I've been talking about, and they said, Jerry, you have videos from a year or two ago where you're telling how to do the opposite of what you're saying now. Well, yeah, guys, I'm trying to grow and develop and change, right? That's called personal development, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm doing things differently now because we have to.
Yeah, you have to correct and you continue.
Right. So
correct and continue.
We have to adapt. Like I used to never put earnest money down on private contracts.
Right.
I'm putting as big as earnest money as I can now on private contracts because I want to show that my contract is legit. Here's earnest money. Earnest money really legitimizes a contract.
Because of contract law, in a contract, you need to have consideration.
Right.
And that is the reason why in earnest money is tantamount to a contract being consummated.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, but here's the problem is I'm getting so much backlash from aspiring wholesalers, new wholesalers, newbies who are saying, Jerry, what you're saying here is like completely destroying the industry for us new people who don't have it.
And this just
puts me in so much. This industry wasn't created for broke people to have a way to make it in life. Like, dude, figure it out. Go deliver pizzas until you have some earnest money. Like, this isn't here for people who can't figure stuff out. Like, it's the other way around. What is the industry and how do I operate? What are the things I need to figure out? How do I partner with Keegley because they have backing in JV or whatever I got to do to get a deal done? It's like find a way,
solution.
do it the right way.
So I want to set the tone for the people that are watching because I can see that as well. I've said things multiple times. I did a YouTube video about this exact topic. I bought a deal from a seller. Her name is Jacqueline. Jacqueline gets under contract with the wholesaler. Wholesaler pays full retail because he has no idea what he's doing. He just goes and gets a contract because he's taught on YouTube to get a contract. So he gets a contract from a free contract.
Yeah.
None of this is his fault.
Yeah.
Because again, the industry is not unified.
Right.
So he's picking and choosing.
Totally different
Right. So
information.
it's not that he's a bad person. He's just picking and choosing what he can get his hands on. He gets her under contract. She then makes a decision to move all of her stuff into a U-Haul, ship it across the country, and
before closing,
and she's getting in preparation as you do. And then how does she find out that the deal's not closing? She finds out because she's old enough to realize that after 15 phone calls to the wholesaler going unanswered means this guy's not going to hurt. He went dark on me. Luckily, we ended up getting the deal under a creative finance situation. I paid somebody an assignment to bring the deal to me, and we helped the lady out of a bad situation. I make a YouTube video about this, and I get backlash when I said, "Guy, I'm criticizing the way the person wholesaled." And the backlash I got was, "You don't want people to be successful in wholesale. You don't want people to wholesale." I'm like, no, the exact opposite.
Right.
I want you to be successful, but if you're going to be a professional and you're going to elevate and be multimillionaire in this business, there are certain things you need to do.
Yeah.
So at some point during this show, I hope we can cover
we're going to talk
those
about
things.
It. Yep. I really want to talk about it because there's
Are you anti-wholesale?
No, I want to. We have to make this industry better.
Okay. I just want, guys, I want to make sure that's clear that we're going to make sure that you guys that are not doing, you are learning how to do wholesale. Between a couple of our live streams, we've got 700 people watching right now.
Listen, money is never the issue to prevent you from doing wholesaling. You can find a way to get earnest money. You can find a way to partner with somebody with backing. You can find a way to do marketing. All of it you can do.
What are just so we can maybe Brent might want to write some of these down. What are the things that wholesalers are attracted to this business for?
No money down.
Okay, no money down. I don't have to have any credit. I don't even have to have really any experience in real estate. I don't have to be licensed of any sort. I can jump into this, go on TTP's YouTube, your YouTube, or any of our YouTubes, and I could learn how to get a deal done in the next 24 hours.
That's
No owning property.
No owning property, no management, no tenants, and I can go get a check for 10 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand within the next week.
Essentially, the wholesaler is skilled at spotting potential and selling that potential off.
That is correct.
That is all we're talking about. And again, when we're discussing this whole concept of equity and what that even means, right? I think one of the things that hasn't been distinguished, especially in these articles, is when they're talking about the equity theft, or these actors that are selling and taking a piece of the contract. That equity doesn't exist until new equity is realized. Again,
by improving the property.
Until the value add happens.
There's potential.
Exactly.
Potential.
All
Potential
we're doing
equity.
is selling potential. So I still, again, when you're looking at this from that perspective, right? As wholesalers, because I get just like you, I get backlash from people. You guys, wholesalers, are a blight on the industry. You guys are stealing people's equities. You guys are robbing grandma. Wait a second, okay? That's not how this goes. That's not how this entire business goes. In fact, all of these properties that we're typically putting under contract are in such terrible condition that their as-is value is exactly what we're paying for it. And what we're selling is a piece of the future potential.
And what it would sell for if it were listed with a real estate agent.
Correct.
It's not like they would have got a better deal if they could even get it done
at
all. So that's so true.
Well, and listen, value is determined by a ready, willing, and able buyer.
The buyer determines the value of the property.
Sellers don't do it. The market doesn't do it. You and I don't do it. Appraisers don't do it. The tax assessment doesn't do it. Somebody that has money that wants to give it to somebody else for that property. So that is how that's how what value is.
So going back to illegal and fraud, the other big one that they have a real issue with is how wholesalers market. And so what's happening is people are marketing properties that they don't own, and you cannot market a property for sale.
What you're saying specifically is you're saying that I, as a wholesaler, you're not talking about my outreach to the seller. You're saying once I get my contract with the seller, I turn around and I blast that on my email list, or I text it, or I do whatever,
Facebook, wherever,
and I'm marketing a property that I don't have ownership on, or I don't have an agency agreement with.
Correct. That is illegal, and it is illegal. Because
but you can market your equitable interest.
You can market your contract. Very, very, such an easy solution, but it's happening a lot in our industry. So think about this. The principal is either the seller, the assignor, or the assignee. There's a lot of bird dogging and JVing that's being done inappropriately, that they're saying you are not a principal. You're marketing a contract that you're not a principal in. And so we have to fix the way we're doing
Okay,
that.
so you're not saying that these things should be obliterated. You're saying the bird dogging and the JVing just needs to be adjusted to be in accordance to what we should be doing.
Organized
Correct.
and formalized.
Yes.
Organized and formalized. Okay.
Yes.
So
That's a big one, though. But that's an easy one to solve. But that is a big one that's getting a lot of attention, and it's happening.
I know we're easing into like where the solutions are going to be, but I want to go over something one more time. The 4 places that you mentioned earlier that have been changing their laws. What are those places and what are the laws that have changed? And basically what I want you to depict is this something that is going to happen or is this something that is already happening?
Let's cover the third thing and then let's get to that. The third real issue that is the playbook for NAR is that wholesalers are predatory. And this is the one that pisses us all off that's what you were just talking about. So now the language, the narrative is these wholesalers are dirty, rotten scoundrels. And the most recent one that Kansas City did was they're stealing from families. They're stealing equity, poor little grandma. And they're making this poor people of color. They're saying they're taking advantage and they're predatory. And the worst of all of it was Atlanta. The whole legislation that Atlanta did, they ran with the predatory. And that was their whole movement.
But I'm sure there was a lot of wholesalers. A lot of wholesalers were there in Atlanta standing up for ourselves.
There's no representation.
There's nobody representing.
No representation. So
they're just
unanswered.
It went unanswered. No one stood up to it. Nothing. And Atlanta used very clear language. They said wholesalers coerce sellers. Now, if you look up the definition of coerce, it's force against their will. What? How would a wholesaler force a seller against their will to sell their property? And that's where the equity theft, that definition of, I never heard of that. Equity theft came from Atlanta. Wholesalers are stealing equity. So there's this big movement that is predatory. Now, that language gets a lot of eyeballs. Like there's a sympathy there. I mean, that's a really dirty-handed movement to say wholesalers are predatory. I get the illegal. I get the thing. I get that. I get the licensing argument. There's an argument to be made there. But fraudulent, or not fraudulent, but predatory?
Right.
Come on. I mean,
Look,
maybe there's a guy or two out there doing harm, but that's not our industry. It's not what we're here for.
They're using the salacious language because it sells newspapers, and quite frankly, it's fucking racist.
Okay, can I ask you a question though? Because there's licensed realtors that will go and get a listing under contract. They'll get a listing agreement for 6 months with a seller. That seller doesn't have enough equity to pay the closing costs, to pay the commissions. And what happens is they get an offer, they go to close escrow, and then the seller here's I got to cut a check for 20 grand to sell my property. A licensed realtor did not give them a seller net sheet telling them you don't have enough equity to sell this property. Right. You're going to have to come out of pocket. And then my house on Sterling, my last house I lived in, that's exactly what happened. They went through 6 months of an agent saying, you're going to have to cut a check. Why didn't you tell me this in the very beginning? Why didn't you tell me that I was going to have to hemorrhage money to sell my property? There are agents that will do anything out there to get a listing signed. Yeah. And so what you're essentially doing is that NAR is saying agents are perfect. They don't make these mistakes, but you guys are out there being predators.
Right. Well, so that's the point here is just because you're licensed doesn't mean you don't operate shady.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
That's the point, right? So that doesn't solve that problem. I mean, like all of us, I know just as many awesome agents as I do shady agents. Yes. Right. And so that's just life. Like there's shady people in everything, every industry. Right. Yeah. But I get oversight. I get having some kind of standardized. We need to do that. We need to standardize our training. We need to get all wholesalers everywhere kind of operating under the same parameters. And we need a code of ethics. Like we need these things.
What about standardizing a wholesale contract?
I think I mean, there's got to be a
like
list.
That or you don't like
love
that?
It.
There's got to be a list of things that all contracts have that are good to the seller, good to the buyer, that are legit, that can stand up in court, can stand up against scrutiny, right? We need that.
A judge hates nothing more than when you walk into a civil litigation than a one-sided contract.
Yeah.
A one-sided contract is a recipe for disaster. If you're going to go and try and enforce a contract in court and your contract has teeth only for you, a non-neutral contract, there's nothing a judge hates more than that. An arbitrator, a judge. So having neutralized contracts that are standard would be an incredible movement.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jerry, just to keep us on track, because all 4 of us have amazing stories we could all tell. And I think we'll get to that. You've got the 3 things that NAR is in their playbook. What are those 3 things? One more time.
That wholesalers are brokering.
Yep.
Okay.
And need licensed, and it's not fair. That's the other thing. It's not fair. I can't tell you how many agents are like, I had to get a license and I have to do Con Ed and I have to pay it's not fair. Okay, well, that's their argument. It's not fair, and that wholesalers are brokering and should be licensed. Second one is a lot of the activities we do are fraudulent and illegal.
Okay.
And we talked about a couple of those things that they really have an argument about. And then the third thing is that wholesalers are predatory.
Okay, so NAR is not planning on changing this. They are already doing it.
You guys wait and see what is going to come out this year, because
so what has already happened? Let's just, because there's people in here. There's, we got 800 people watching live between a couple streams. Has NAR actually successfully changed the legislation?
So the biggest one so far that I think is going to become the gold standard is the state of Illinois. Now, this was actually this was in 2019, so it's been a couple
They were
years.
the first domino that fell, right?
First big domino. Now, all states have a lot of things in place that wholesalers are doing wrong, but no one's enforcing it, and the fines are really low, like $500 if you violate licensing law, and then no one's really whistleblowing. Illinois comes out and says, if you do more than one deal, you are now considered a dealer, and you need to have a license. You need to fall under the agent broker model, and if you're caught, it's a $25,000 fine.
Wow.
The whole state. Now, that was a huge move. And now what's going to happen now that Illinois did it? Now, all of a sudden, you're seeing other states rolling out with their own things. So Kansas this past year, they tried to pass the same exact bill, essentially, as Illinois, and it didn't pass. But the director of the board of the real estate commission said, he came out publicly, it's in that Kansas City article. He said, we're going to try again, and we want either wholesalers to stop what they're doing or get licensed. And he's the director of the real estate board. That's Kansas. And Kansas and Missouri all do the same. They're like sister states.
Yeah.
So Missouri is talking and they're doing the same. That's happening right now.
All of your team is licensed.
Yes.
We've talked about licensing.
We
can talk about a solution right in a minute. But you got so you got Illinois. They're the big. So do you think California is looking at what Illinois?
1,000%.
Oh my gosh! Like, I had someone come out and say, "Well, California will never." Are you kidding me? California is then for sure
regulation capital of the world.
Think about this, guys. Do you know how much money is not passing through the state, the broker, and NAR? Wholesaler, we're keeping all of our money right now.
Right. Of course, they want to get involved.
And we're a real legit industry, and no one's getting a piece.
Let's talk about what this piece could look like in a transaction. Let's say a transaction nets $10,000.
Yep.
All right. What would an association like NAR take? What would they be gaining from a transaction of that size? Would you say?
Well, typically it's about 1,000 to 1,500.
So about 15%
a year.
So 20% goes to your broker, or whatever your splits are.
Right.
Yep.
So you would take $2,000 of if your broker split is 20%, that'd be $2,000 out of your 10K going to the broker.
Right.
Now you have to pay dues now. So NAR's getting dues, broker's getting money. That broker's now paying NAR, right? It's all funneling back. NAR did last year, NAR did 260 million in association dues. 1.5 million
dues.
Agents. Now, NAR is in constant legal battles. They're in a huge one with the DOJ right now for monopoly. But think about it. NAR owns the MLS.
Right.
You essentially cannot be a real estate agent without being a member of NAR. I'm a licensed broker. I own a boutique brokerage in Michigan. I've had my license forever, and I'm a member of NAR. And I hate NAR. Why? I can't have MLS if I don't pay NAR dues.
Yeah. Right.
Because NAR owns the MLS, and they mandate that. It's the biggest racket ever. So here we are, right? So
Illinois is done.
So
Kansas is done, or they're working.
They'll get it done.
So Atlanta's a market I love. I love buying deals in Atlanta. It's one of my favorite markets. What happened in Atlanta?
So Atlanta basically said their law says that if a seller says no, like if you contact the seller and they say no, and you contact them a second time, it's under a commercial harassment. Yeah, harassment. Then you're now violating their law, and you pay fines and fees.
So essentially, if you cold called a seller and they said, no, I'm not interested today, and then you put them on a direct mail drip
You
campaign,
better not.
that would be called commercial harassment. When my furnace cleaning company commercially harasses me every single
Right,
month.
and agents.
This
right.
is interesting because I get
So think about direct mail. You better not send 2 direct mail pieces.
a direct mail doesn't work until you've hit 4 or 5
Right.
times.
Yeah.
Like if you do the math on direct mail, you don't start getting calls from that seller until you mail the 4th time.
Yeah.
When did this go into effect?
Just recently.
Like 2
couple
months ago.
But
2
I
months
feel
ago.
like I haven't.
Well,
like,
yeah, because it
people
hasn't
are
been
still winning
enforced
in
yet.
Because
Atlanta.
nobody
It hasn't been
and
enforced yet.
and the industry is just like going about our day, right? Like we're not really.
We're still
This is
whistling Dixie.
this should be
Yeah.
freaking us out. Like
Yeah.
what the heck, man?
Here's what happened. I had a lot of my students stop cold calling in Atlanta and go to other markets. Right. So now what's going to happen is we're going to start scurrying to other markets until we start getting closed out in other markets.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to go build a big business that's doing 10 deals a month and then have somebody come along and go, you owe me $400,000 for all the violations you've made
Yeah.
and shut your entire business down. So what's happening is I've seen a lot of people stop cold calling, stop doing anything in Atlanta and go deviate other places. And now what they're doing is they're like, well, I guess I'm only forced to be able to do agent outreach and I'm going to go work with agents in Atlanta. That's the only lead source that I can focus on.
But that's the contradiction. So are you telling? So now wholesalers can't contact the seller more than once, but agents can send direct mail. They can knock doors.
yeah.
They can do whatever they want.
Interesting,
How come
huh?
they're not part of that same? It's only wholesalers.
It's because they don't have. It's because we don't have any regulations and we don't have a unified front saying here's our standard operating.
And a code of ethics.
Yeah.
And a
We
code
don't
of
have
ethics.
code of ethics.
and a legal team that's going to fight this crap and say,
Right.
wait a second. Now, here's what's funny about Atlanta. Nowhere. I looked at all the legislation. I looked all the thing. Nowhere did they show one seller who actually was harmed by a wholesaler.
This is what I
It's
think
all
about all the
hearsay.
time. Have you
It's all
guys
hearsay.
ever had a seller that didn't thank you when you
Right.
bought their house?
Never.
Offer to take you to dinner, give you a
Never.
big hug?
No,
Right? That's
never.
my experience too. Yeah. So here we are
If
calling.
anything, it's them backing out at the deal or whatever,
Yeah,
before it closes.
It's a
or
seller
something
trying to
like
get
that,
a higher
you know what I
purchase
mean?
price from somebody else.
So
or
here's
whatever.
Atlanta
but-
saying wholesalers are predatory, although we don't actually have one single example.
Well, it's because nobody was there to defend ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
They just steamrolled right over us.
Now let's go to Philadelphia. Philadelphia, which was led by Alan Dom, who is a big time broker in the
Mhm.
city
Yeah.
of Philadelphia, and
Yeah.
he's on the city council.
So he's probably sick of wholesalers just crushing it
He's trying
around
to
him.
he's trying to eliminate competition. Come on,
Genius.
no one talks about how he's. I found that out, researching the guy. What the heck? He's a huge broker in the city.
Yeah.
And so what Philadelphia says is they say they got a bunch of weird things, but basically the big one is if you don't disclose to the seller how they can find out what the real value is of their property, so you have to give them ways to like, okay, here's how you find out your value and a couple other things. If you don't do these things, then the seller can get out of the contract and not close without any repercussions. So they don't have to perform on the contract. They also have a licensing thing, not a real estate license, but you have to register as a wholesaler with the city and pay the city fees
Right.
to register basically as a wholesaler with
Yeah.
the city. Okay, so that's there's some things there. You can work around some of that, not real big issue, but it's more about the narrative of like these dirty, rotten wholesalers. That's because it's just catching wind and it's getting on Bloomberg and it's getting all this
So
national
NAR
attention.
is just barely getting started.
Oh yeah. They're
Because
just getting started.
I imagine before Illinois got done, it was probably years and years of them working and spending millions and millions of dollars lobbying against this. They finally get that first big domino to hit. Now you're seeing Atlanta and you're seeing other places, and it's probably just going to snowball until it's a major problem for us. Is that what you're seeing?
As soon as you get to maybe 4 or 5 states that have done it, Oklahoma's also Oklahoma, they call it the Wholesaler Predatory Act.
Yeah.
Like predatory
Predators
is
in the act.
is in the name of their act. The word predatory.
And what act did they release? What's the
It's
legislation?
got a lot to do with marketing. Like they don't want. It's all about how you market your contracts, and so that's their big issue is how you're marketing your contracts.
So it's probably
for
just the
Oklahoma.
beginning. They're probably going to continue to add more and more.
Everyone is. They all are. Yeah. So it's going to snowball. The dominoes are happening, and we're behind. I feel like we're behind the ball. Like we got to get going here to organize, to standardize, and we need legal counsel to fight some of this stuff. Like we gotta grow up now and stop being the little kid at the playground,
Mhm.
right? Is how
Okay,
I'm
so
looking at
what?
it.
So is that the solution? What is the solution to this?
Well, so I think educators everywhere like us, we need to be really talking a lot about best practices,
Mhm.
like with our following and our education. We gotta stop pushing so hard this like zero down, no effort, easy, right? Because I think that's drawing a lot of fly by night, get rich quick crowd in our industry.
Yeah.
And those guys, maybe ethics are lacking a little bit. Like, hey, if I can make 10 grand and screw somebody, I'm okay to do that.
Or
we got to move away from some of that.
They don't have any experience. They don't know what they're doing. And so you're asking somebody to come in that has no experience, nothing, to jump into a business where there's not I guess a unified system of education. Like, which contract do I use?
Right.
Do you know how many contracts have I seen and touched? Hundreds of different contracts.
I've changed mine dozens of times, right? You know? Yeah. So definitely standardized training. I think we need to have certifications where people can feel like I'm getting the right education on how to do this business the right way. I mean, there's two things that I'm telling people that will solve all your problems. One is get a real estate license.
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, that may not be what you want to do, or you may not like being under that umbrella.
But if I get a real estate license, what's the second thing before I cut you off?
Get a real estate license and stop doing assignments. Stop doing assignments.
What's the solution?
Double close. That's what I'm doing.
Can you double close without having any money?
No, unless you can double close in escrow, which some title companies will do.
My title company does it.
Yeah.
So it's an easy solution.
It's a relationship thing. A lot of new people are going to really struggle with the double close in escrow. Means you're using the funds from the cash buyer.
So what you're doing is you're eliminating the narrative that you are not a principal and that you are not an actual buyer.
Once you don't do the assignment and you buy the property and close, you've performed on the contract. No one has an argument anymore about what you're doing.
You are the actual buyer.
Yeah.
So instead of you sourcing deals for other people, you source a deal for yourself.
And then close with my cash buyer 5 minutes later.
Right.
Problem solved.
Or simultaneously.
Simultaneous. Transactional funding is going to come in. Yeah, there's fees for that. Yeah, that sucks. But I don't want anyone coming after me and accusing me of predatory or any of that. Right. So we are trying to move completely away from assignments. Now, I know the assignment's the best way to do it. I know there's no money involved. I know that. Everybody knows that. But if you want to do it right, solve the problem completely, just perform on the contract and close. Problem solved. Get a real estate license, problem solved. Now, if you are going to continue doing the assignment, we got to look really closely at the contracts, earnest money, your intention. If someone says to you, show me that you actually have funds or backing to perform on this contract, because that's what the court's going to do. If you go to court, they're going to say, could you have closed on that property to call yourself a principal? And I know that's what you guys do quite a bit of. I love it. I have that student said, I didn't have earnest money. I didn't have backing. I partnered with Keegley. They did. We split. I did my deal. Like, get it. You can get stuff done. I started a funding company for transactional funding to help students have money to double close.
I've heard good things about it.
Like find a solution. But
I don't necessarily, I love all of those things because we do them as well. But I do feel like you're alienating a group of people that are like,
piss off a lot of people.
Well, not even that. It's just like there are people that might be 18, 19 years old that don't have any other opportunity to make good money other than jump into this and assign a deal to a guy like me. Mm-hmm. Right. So is the solution to then work with your cash buyer and say, cash buyer, I'm going to utilize your funds to double close this?
All of that. So you just have to be thinking, well, here's what you have to do. If you're going to do the assignment, first of all, it's going to get harder and harder and harder as more regulation passes. That's going to stop you being able to do that. But if you still can, and if you want to, and you like that model, fine. Just know that as soon as you do the assignment, you just open up a ton of scrutiny.
Okay, so is the solution for me to get licensed as a realtor and pay a portion of it to my broker potentially and have all these other regulations and continued education and fees and all this other stuff? Or is the solution to go and double close and then I'm done? I don't even have to have this conversation anymore?
Correct. Conversation's over if you double close.
So why would you ever need an association of wholesalers then? What would an association of wholesalers do for us?
If you're just doing double closing?
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of, because I think you can
now you still can't market to the seller because what they're doing is getting rid of the ability to market unless you're some sort of,
unless you're licensed
and your original, and you could still,
licensed.
And you could still do some things in your original contract, maybe that aren't, up to par or whatever. Yeah. I mean, I still think there's like best practices with how you communicate with sellers, what you're saying, what you're doing. The double close just means no one can say that my intent wasn't to buy the property because I said that's what I was doing. And I did. And I'm the buyer on the contract and I did it.
Could they argue with you and say, well, you actually used somebody else's money to close that transaction?
No, as long as you close, money's money, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just know that as time goes on, doing the assignment is going to get more and more eyeballs on it. More and more
'Cause-
eyeballs, more and more complaints.
And let me ask you, because you have your ear around the whole country, Jamil. Are people getting sued? Are people going to litigation? Are people getting lawsuits against wholesaling companies, against wholesalers?
Very few.
The only ones I've seen are people that are intelligent attorneys that have received text messages on their properties and they go, oh my gosh, this is a wonderful opportunity for me to just tell people, hey, you're not supposed to text me. I've asked you not to. I'm going to send you a demand letter to pay me $3,000 or I'm
Right.
taking you to
Right.
and they never go to
No, but
litigation
what I'm
or
talking
lawsuit.
about is because we're talking about assignments.
Okay.
We're talking about it because I sign.
I signed too.
Yeah.
I sign.
It's
and
the best way to do it.
But listen, I have the ability to close any of them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like I not only personal funds, but also
Right.
capital to, connections, network, hard money, transactional funding, whatever it is. Right. So I feel comfortable and confident assigning it because I know I get every single deal I look at. I am like, I would buy that. I would
Yeah.
buy that.
Yeah.
This is one exit strategy that
Yeah.
I have. I might flip it. I might hold it.
Right.
I'll sign it. Most of the time I sign it. That's our business, right?
Yep.
So is there anybody that's getting in trouble? Like, are people assigning things wrong?
No, it's not about it's about it getting people getting sued at the moment.
Right.
It's at the moment.
Okay.
Right. So it's a downward spiral.
Okay.
Okay, because what it starts with, again, this language, it starts with these
Predatory.
articles, it starts with words like
Yeah.
predator, it
Yeah.
starts with words like fraud.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
when those terms become the terms that stick to an industry,
Mm-hmm.
then the lawsuits are bound to happen.
Sure.
Right?
Because all you need is one example.
That's it.
you know.
And it's like anything else. If you are branded a specific way,
Mm-hmm.
then everybody is going to tar and feather you that exact way.
Right.
Right. And so the fact or what we're trying to accomplish at this point right now
Mm-hmm.
is to redefine the narrative. Let's redefine what this industry is branded as.
Right.
And right now, unfortunately, it's being called predatory. In fact, we all know because of the way that we do our business
Mm-hmm.
that it's actually a service-based industry. We're
course.
helping people.
1,000%.
We help communities, we help neighborhoods, right? A lot of these vacant houses are where crime is happening, where drugs are happening, where prostitution comes, rapes, things like this happen in these vacant properties.
Mm-hmm.
And when a cash buyer comes and then rejuvenates that property, we are now elevating the entire neighborhood.
Well, it's an investment into the street.
1,000%.
Literal investment into the
Here's a
the
question.
neighborhood, the street.
Absolutely.
Is Open Door, OfferPad, any of these guys regulated at any point?
Heck
these,
no.
These guys are marketing like crazy.
But do you ever hear a Silicon Valley company be called a predator?
No.
They're called a business.
Yeah.
Okay? They're called a business. And again, I'm so sorry to have to say this again, but it's because we've got people of a different hue running those businesses. That's what's happening. Let's just call it what it is. Guys, this is the industry coming after minority groups because they see minorities profiting off the situation. And that's 1,000% what it is.
But Brent, going back to what you're saying, it's less about is this happening, and it's more about just the perception and the movement and the money grab by NAR and anti-wholesalers and stuff. Because if you look at so far all the things that have happened in these different places, none of it was coming from the consumer protection agencies.
Right.
None of them said, hey, we received 1,000 complaints from sellers, from these wholesalers.
Mm-hmm.
Let's step in and investigate. None of it.
Right.
Not one of that has happened yet.
Right.
Now, I'm sure there are complaints, right? But not enough to where that's the real thing that's happening. What it is it's National Association of Realtors pushing this legislation, and it's hearsay.
Yeah.
It's all hearsay.
Well, I think, and you talked about Open Door and OfferPad.
Yeah,
These are brokerages.
Right. But have we ever
These
seen
are
an
licensed
article
people,
written
right?
about, hey, when we let's break down an Open Door contract? Again, I have nothing against Open Door.
Right.
Open Door, great job. You've done well.
Mhm.
But let's break down an Open Door contract. The purchase price on an Open Door contract and the net proceeds to
Yeah, it's not
seller
even close.
are two completely
Yeah.
different numbers. Now tell me how that's not some form of misleading.
Well, the higher price that they buy things, the more that they can sell it because it's a comp.
Again,
Yes. So let me stop you on that because that is so important. I used to work for Open Door as
Yes.
a 1099. I was
Contractor.
a general contractor. What did they hire me for? They paid me $250 per house, literally for 30 minutes worth of work. I made $1 million take home in 2015,
Mhm.
primarily from this exact thing. And what happened is Open Door, who they paid their bills. They did well. I liked working with them. But what they did is they'd get a seller into contract. They then hired me as an independent contractor to come in and beat the seller up on the price. I'd take my inflated invoice, send it to Open Door. Open Door would take that invoice and say, seller, I'm sorry, we're going to have to renegotiate $40,000 off of your purchase price.
Right before closing.
Right before closing. Now, that was years ago in 2015. They've since brought a lot of this in-house to do it, so it's a little bit more seamless, but they're still doing that. We see sellers that we're negotiating with, and I'll say to a seller, they go, well, we're talking to Open Door. I go, great. When they come back to you and try and renegotiate with you 2 days before close of escrow, please give us a call back, and we'll help you out. And we get a lot of contracts that way.
Right.
So how is it that that's not predatory? How is that not misleading? It's because Open Door maybe has some lobbyists. Maybe they're a little bit more unified. Maybe they're a bigger gorilla to take down, or maybe they just are smarter about the way that they do business. I don't know. I see them being more predatory than any wholesaler I've ever met.
Totally.
And
agree.
they have volume. I mean, like, okay, you got these onesie, twosie wholesalers, or you got a huge company doing thousands of transactions, like, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is the reality where we're at now. I do want to say this because I've been talking a lot about this, and I get so many people that just get discouraged. Like, oh my gosh, right when I started to get into wholesaling, now
everything's changing.
Now it's ruined. It's ruined. And they're all upset about it and stuff. I'm taking the complete opposite approach. I'm taking the DeMille Damsey approach, which is, well, okay, let's make some lemonade, man. Like, how do we make this?
How do we upgrade the industry?
Yeah.
How do we upgrade the industry? How do we elevate? How do we make this a good thing? How do we take this thing going on and make it a good thing?
We started, and you remember this, when Keegley first came into inception, right? 6 years ago. The first thing we did was get everybody licensed. And people were throwing eggs at me about it.
Yeah.
They were like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why are you making it so hard? I'm like, I see the writing on the wall. It's there. Now, was that voluntary? Yes. Did we feel like we had to? Yes. We felt like we had to, in order for us to remain compliant and to do this without having to worry about scrutiny or being called predatory or being called this or being called that. We licensed everybody.
Yep.
But again, licensing is expensive. It's one of the line items on our yearly accounting that is an extreme expense for our company, right?
But honestly, because I'm a proponent of licensing too.
So am I.
Let's take all of this and set it aside for a second. I think for wholesalers to get a real estate license is a huge benefit to your
Absolutely.
business. You can get referral fees now. Right?
Credibility.
You can set up your own showings on market. You can get MLS to comp.
Don't need
That's
prop
the best
stream.
that's the best comp tool out there, right? Is the MLS.
Batch.
So, well, I just mean, like, you can get really good data.
Yeah.
And so there's so many benefits to having your license. I think for me, I think our business does 20, 30,000 just in referrals, where we talk to a seller, their number's too high.
Oh, yeah.
We say, hey, why don't you talk to my agent? They can help you sell that property. I get, a percentage of that list fee. You cannot do that unless you're licensed. So being able to refer other agents and get a cut of that commission is a huge benefit.
Is there ever going to be a way for a wholesale license and a real estate agent license to have some form of reciprocity or coexistence?
Here's my vision about that.
Okay.
I feel like it's all got to come from somewhere. If we can organize and we can create standardized training, and that training could reach a level of sufficiency to where a state could come in and say, we want to adapt this training and we want to bring this to the state level, and we want to use this as the standard for licensing. And now wholesalers can operate their own industry. Agents are over here, wholesalers are over here. We feel like there's oversight. We feel like there's standardization. We feel like there's a way to do things the right way that's consumer protecting and all of that. But we got to just start. And I think if we could get that training and that standard on our own before anybody recognizes it as any kind of formal certification, then the day will come where you could actually become a licensed wholesaler and do the business the way we do it, because we do it different than agents, right? We serve a different client, and wouldn't that be amazing if we actually had that?
Agree.
Yeah.
Totally.
The other thing with just being an agent, and I had this conversation with my broker before I hung my license with Stunning Homes and Steve Trang.
Yeah.
The conversation I had before was, okay, if I'm a principal on this contract, and I assign my ability to be the principal on this contract, I give that to or sell that to a cash buyer. I'm no longer in the deal. There's no there's no agency here. There's no fiduciary
Correct.
duty here.
Correct.
Like I'm a ghost. I'm floating here.
You're a line item on a HUD.
I am a line item on a HUD. So,
But that has to be very clear disclosure.
How is that? Where's the agency? You know what I mean? Like
it would have to be right. So here's the thing. So I'm licensed too, right? So every time I talk to a seller, I have to disclose.
Of course,
I'm a licensed real estate agent, and I'm acting right now as a principal in this transaction, not an agent.
Right.
I'm not an agent.
Right.
I'm not representing your best interest or buyers. I'm a principal.
Yeah.
I'm my own thing.
Yeah.
I'm a corporation.
But what I'm saying
acting
is
to make a profit.
From a standpoint of real estate departments, licensing, NAR, what did we do? Who did we represent? That's why I'm thinking having a wholesaling license
Would
as its
clarify
own
that.
thing
Would clean that up.
clean that all
That would-
up.
that would
Exactly,
clean that
because
up.
it would
There's no gray.
remove the concept of agency altogether.
Right.
That's what I'm
Okay,
saying.
pause. We've got 1,000 people watching right now.
Wow.
Okay.
Awesome.
So let's just give them a little bit of love, guys. Thank you for coming here. We've got 150 people on Instagram, and we've got we've been floating between 900 and 980 people on YouTube. So guys, thank you so much for being here. We've got a combined about 1,100 people watching. Why don't we pull out a couple of questions and then let's go on to how we can solve this problem? What do you guys think?
Great.
Are there any questions or comments? I can't read
there's a
exactly.
lot.
So many. It hasn't stopped.
So there's some angry people. There's some pumped people. There's people that are coming up with solutions.
I'd like to see in the comments who agrees with actually being a little bit more formal here and upgrading the wholesaling industry rather than just letting everybody be willy-nilly. Right? Do you agree with that, or do you want to keep the industry exactly the way it is? Because there's always going to be people that are upset. Like, why are you changing?
Sure.
You know?
Look, I'm the last guy to say more oversight, more regulation, more rules, more requirements. Like, right? I mean, but
Yeah, you live in Puerto Rico, bro.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want. No. No, but the big thing that I keep telling everybody is whether you like it or not, it's coming and it's coming fast. And so you don't have a choice. Like if you just sit and wait, it's gonna happen to you rather than you act. It's gonna act upon you.
Why this is so important is because there is no better business in the world, in my opinion, than wholesaling real estate. There is no better business.
God bless you. I agree.
Okay,
That's so true.
Whether I'm wholesaling a cash deal, I'm wholesaling a creative finance deal, it does not matter.
No.
Wholesaling real estate is the easiest and best way for me to make $300, $400, $600, $1 million in my first year with not having to go to school for 16
You can't
years.
do that in any other business.
No
that
other
I've ever
business.
seen.
You
And
can't
no-
do that in any career.
And none of
Right.
them are as rewarding either, right? Most of there's industries that go out and sell it. Like, I'm not going to knock people that sell insurance because it's a great industry, but I don't get as good of feelings selling insurance to somebody as I do by helping somebody out of a bad situation out of their house.
Totally.
You win, the seller wins, you make a lot of money, your buyer, you are employing as a wholesaler. We did the math one time. You are employing an average of 50 people on one wholesale transaction
deal.
because you've got
contractors,
appraisers,
and
title
companies,
companies.
and now someone's taking this vacant property that no one's paying taxes on. The city's getting,
And you're making the
everybody's
neighbor
winning, right? Everyone's
my
values go
gosh.
up. Yeah, but see, we're preaching to the choir because we know this,
Right.
But Bloomberg and the press and
They
the
have no
media and NAR out there, the language is completely different about what we really do.
Hey, team back there, you guys got any good questions or comments that you'd like us to address? I see a whole bunch in there, but I can't quite read them. A lot of people are agreeing. Anybody that doesn't agree, I'd like to get somebody who's like, no, I don't like this.
Let's get a contrarian up there.
And I don't mind a contrarian. That's the
No,
thing is
neither
like,
do
let's
I.
have the conversation.
But we will shame you. No.
And by the way, guys, Jerry's shirt is technically navy. It's not an all black out.
Yeah, that's right.
Somebody's wondering
I didn't get the
if it's
memo.
yeah. Well, hey, get him a TTP hoodie. Let's.
What do you guys got?
No.
Yeah.
Listen, I think that it's important. Here's what's beautiful. This business has given so much to all of us,
Yes.
right? It's given so much to the people that we love the most, the students that we work with, the people that we see that have little to no real estate experience, but they have that fire in their belly. They have the same brain that we have, that want to be entrepreneurs, want to maximize their potential, not just stick to that $75,000 money to happiness ratio that science tells us
Such
that's
crap.
the ceiling, that you go 75 grand brand and that's where your happiness is, right? We have different people here that are like, I want to do something special.
Did
I wanna
NAR
be
do that
able to-"
report? Who did that
NAR
report?
Did that report. Yeah, it was NAR. Yeah. If it was NAR, it'd probably be $7,500.
That's right.
Because that's what the average agent makes. But it's the truth.
No,
It's the
it's
truth.
like 40,000 a year or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that, right?
So, but if you're just starting out in this and you have stars in your eyes and you have that fire in your belly and you're hearing all these things and you're wondering if getting into real estate is if it's the right time and is wholesaling still going to be a thing, what would you say to them?
1,000%. I want to double
always the
down.
right time.
I want to double down on the industry. Right.
Likewise.
I told the Illinois wholesalers when that happened, I said, you guys that are legit in Illinois, what a blessing for you guys.
I have a buddy,
because the
Jeff.
fly-by-nights are gone now because they're not going to get licensed. I got to get licensed. Oh, I'm out.
Why is that though? Why is that? I don't understand that. I'm not licensed.
9 days, by the way.
Come on. Because
For me, it would take like maybe 45 days.
you got to
Because you can't,
I'd fail the
you
test.
can't outsource it.
Yeah, I can't
One of
outsource
your
it.
VAs can't do this for you.
I mean, it is work in Illinois. The class is 70 hours. You got to pass the class exam. You got to go take the state exam. You got to hang your license under a broker. You got to do Con Ed. You got to pay NAR. Right there. That sucks. I get it.
What's Con Ed,
sucks.
Jerry? Nobody knows.
Education.
Continuing education, 6 hours every year to maintain your license. It's basically license
So
maintenance.
basically, somebody that's not willing to put in the work
Shouldn't be in the industry anyway.
I agree with that.
That's my opinion.
Okay, because there's no way you can be successful in this business if you're not willing to put in the work.
It's like this is how I look at tax delinquent. If the county's going to charge me for the list, oh, that's a good list.
Oh, yeah.
If it's a free list, it sucks.
Yeah.
Because everybody can get it.
Right.
And someone that's got to pay $500, less people are going to get that list.
Yeah.
Right? Like look
It's
at it as
like
a blessing.
it's like Costco. I always say this thing about Costco. You ever walk into Costco? Oh, these are my people. I'm getting free samples. Things are the quality's a little bit higher. What's the difference between the feeling you have in Walmart versus Costco? Is a $99 membership per year. Is the quality of people that are going through that door. It's the greatest filtering mechanism ever.
Yeah. Which, by the way, Pace, we spend $1,000 a week.
I'm sure you do.
At Costco.
I believe that.
Yeah.
You have 1,000 kids.
I believe it.
You should have seen my 5% back check from Costco. You know, your rewards, 5% back from what you spend.
Holy
It was
crap.
sizable. I bought a house with it. No.
Wow.
Here's cash home buyers from Connecticut, I assume. Forming a license will not fix this. NAR will never stop until wholesalers come under its umbrella.
I have an answer to that.
Okay.
That may be true, but if we are a formalized organization, if we are a nonprofit trade association, they have to invite us to the table. You cannot ignore that there's representation in the industry and just go around them completely.
And how would that help?
Because now,
What would be a seat at the
first
table?
and foremost, Atlanta. Think about Atlanta. They
Right.
went through without any representation. They didn't tell any actual stories.
Examples.
No examples.
No one
So-
said, show me a case study of a
Exactly.
seller that was harmed.
Bring a seller to the table.
Yeah.
Show me what happened, and
Yeah.
let's look at the actual context of the situation rather you just putting
We
stuff
make
out
it
there.
so easy. Think about the news organizations. If there's, they can just spin it however they want. Whereas if there's an association, you kind of have to say, hey, we actually contacted the Wholesaler Association to see what they say. Like you kind of have to do that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And at least now they can skew it and spin it, right? But at least we can be part of the conversation. And if we're part of the conversation, it's going to be better than not part of the conversation.
Right.
So sure, NAR can outspend us. I mean, we're nothing, right?
Yeah.
And they have 260 million a year in annual dues. That's
Right.
not even all their other money they raise. So yeah, we're going up against the giant. But what are we going to do? Sit by and watch? I don't want to sit by and watch.
Well, maybe it's not going against them. Maybe it's, getting a seat at the table. Maybe it's just opening up a dialogue.
I think that's just it. I think it's opening a dialogue, and I think it's putting your best foot forward.
Because we're part of NAR.
So are we.
Are you licensed?
I personally, no.
I'm not either.
Every
My
person
wife
in
and my business
in my
partner are.
company is,
Yeah.
But your company
except
is
for
because
me.
they're all
Yeah.
paying.
Yeah, my
NAR.
company is
Yeah.
too.
And Keegley is a brokerage.
We're all paying NAR
Yeah.
dues.
We all pay dues. Yeah.
Think about this, guys. We're all paying our enemy who's trying to take us down.
Interesting.
How messed up is that?
It is messed up. Here you go, Daddy. I want more.
Yeah.
Take me down.
Okay, I'm going to bend over and touch my toes.
Exactly.
Thank
While
you.
I pay you.
While I pay you to do it.
So we formalize, we organize.
Yeah.
We create a standard code of ethics.
Will you before we get into that,
A lot of people are
with this sentiment?
This is what I was
why
bringing-
would the
I know.
conversation better?
This is
Yeah.
so. First of all, I feel I feel like a lot of educators in our space are just ignoring this issue for this very reason.
Because
And that's selfish, because here's why. If I don't want to talk about this because maybe a student of mine is going to not join my program and I want to just paint a rosy picture of wholesaling,
that's wrong.
that's selfish,
Yep.
right? Like you need to know the issues and you need to know what you're getting into. And if you can't handle that, or you're not a big boy or big girl, this industry wasn't for you anyway, because I guarantee you, after you've gotten 100 rejections on offers, you're out anyway, because you can't handle the rejection anyway.
Right.
I heard Brent say 200 quality offers to get a contract. You know how many people are not willing to get 199 no's?
Right.
Bro, we have a contract we just got last week. Obviously, we all have CRMs. My CRM says we followed up with the seller how many times to get the contract?
Dozen. Whatever.
100 times. It's the
Well, it
most.
wasn't Atlanta.
It was not Atlanta, but it was the most we've ever had to follow up with the
He's
seller.
going to get a bill in the
Oh
mail.
my
We
gosh.
we had a deal last year. I bought a house on Des Moines, right? IRS lien, all sorts of hairy stuff. We've all dealt with it, but we followed up with the seller for 52 times. 52
Yeah.
times. And when we got the testimonial from the seller at the title company that went in to sign, we had the testimonial. I said, if there's anything you could say about how we handled you, what would you say? And the seller says, thank you for not giving up on me.
Yeah.
Thank you for not giving up on me. It's a great, I have it on my
Front of
Instagram.
mind. So when they finally were ready, who should I call about my deal? Pace.
Right.
He's been calling me
So,
every
but
week.
my point of bringing that up is if you're not willing to do a little bit more work, you're not going to be successful in this
Yeah.
industry regardless. Sometimes it does take 10 calls. Sometimes it takes 50 calls. Sometimes it takes whatever it does. Realtors, Monique Walker, who we just had on our show, she does follow up like crazy
Every
all
day.
the time. It doesn't
Every day.
matter if you're a realtor, if you're selling insurance, if you're selling tires, it requires follow up and it requires long effort to be successful.
For me, Pace, nothing more would be more devastating than 5 years from now, there is no more wholesaling. And I mean, I've got 18 years in now in this industry. And to think that that could be a possibility, I mean, that's extreme, right? But it could be a possibility. That's devastating.
When you're
and,
saying-
and I don't want to see that happen to our industry. It could become the greatest thing ever if we want to take it there, I think.
I agree.
When you say wholesaling, are you meaning assignment of contracts? Because there is 70 different definitions of wholesaling that everybody has a different spin on. I call it the art of finding discounted properties is what wholesaling is. Most people just think wholesaling is assignment. Are you saying assignments are going to go away, could go away?
That's what's under attack is assignments. That's what's under attack.
That's what I want to clarify.
So for me, my business model is flipping. So, new construction, fix and flip, buy it, resell it, buy it, clean it, resell it, buy it, gut it, resell it, right? Like all of these things, short-term flipping. But the big thing that's under attack is that assignment. Yeah,
right.
because it just opens up all those doors.
Because people don't have the funds to close, which is fraudulent. Because people are aggressive and
backing out of contracts
and locking up contracts that they have no intention of closing on, but they're going to try to beat them up later on the price when it gets real nitty gritty at the end, right? Some of these
brokering, all those issues we talked about
right.
is where that's all a derivative of the assignment method.
Yeah. Got it.
But I mean, we can't.
Well, we can't
sit here and say no more assignments. That's I say it a little bit, but it's a hard thing to say because it's such a powerful technique to do our business.
It's the best technique.
Right.
It's the best.
Nothing beats it.
What is transactional funding? A lot of people, we got 1,000 people. You got to know that there's at least a couple hundred people that don't know what transactional funding is. What does that mean specifically?
It's just when you have your AB contract between seller and buyer, and then you have your assignment between you, wholesaler, and cash buyer, it's creating two separate closings. Well, if you close on the first transaction with the seller, you got to have the money, even if your second closing is 5 minutes later.
Right.
So transactional funding, it's like day funding. It lends you the money for 5 minutes until you get, and then you pay it off on your
Let's say
second
that I
closing.
have a $200,000 transaction and I'm assigning it essentially to my buyer for $240 because I'm like Brent Daniels. My average assignment fee is $40,000.
Yeah.
I assign it for $40,000. Okay. I assign it for 40 grand. Perfect. I don't need any transactional funding. But if I go, man, I'm worried about this. I want to double close this. I need to bring $200,000 to the table for 5 minutes so that I'm the buyer, and then I'll sell it to my buyer for $240. How much less money will I plan on taking home on a 40,000?
It's going to cut into your fee for sure because you're going to pay.
What are we talking about?
1 to 4 is the going industry rate for transactional funding.
So if
And
I,
is there
of the
transactional
200.
funding in non-judicial states or judicial states?
what are you talking like Florida, Atlanta, stuff like that?
All the ones that's real tough.
Where it's real tough.
Real tough.
Very little. There's
Mhm.
very little transactional funding in there because it's risky.
Mhm.
It's a higher
You have
level
to
of
pay.
risk.
What I'm saying is the 1 to 4% depends on the risk.
Right, but that's
and
that'll
they
be
would do it at 4%.
that's where they
Yeah.
do it at 4 points. So let's
Yeah.
just take that $200,000 transaction, right?
Mhm.
What's 4% of that?
16,000, 8,000.
$8,000, right? So if you're
$8,000.
going to make a $40,000 Brent Daniels assignment fee,
Mhm.
you would actually make a $32,000 profit by using transactional
Because you had
funding
to
and
pay a
double closing.
closing company.
even less
and
because you're going to
Even
pay
less, you're gonna
closing
pay-
fees.
Yeah, you're gonna
So
have your
10
closing
grand.
fees.
It's gonna
You
cost
might
you
you
10
might
grand.
cost you 10 grand to do it. And sometimes because if we're not all as skilled as Brent Daniels is at negotiating deals, there might only be $10,000 in
Right.
a deal.
Right.
In which case there might be a
Then
deficit
it's-
if you try to.
Well, then it's 2,000.
But couldn't I
Well,
go-
yeah, you're right, because if it's on a $200,000 buy, you
This
see
is what I brought up earlier is couldn't I just have a conversation and get trained on how to communicate with my cash buyer and say, hey, cash buyer, you are going to be required to buy this deal from me and do my transactional funding at 0 points.
it's just not super clean, because now the argument is, let's take that scenario. Let's say that I'm going to use my cash buyer to prove that I'm a principal. Well, you're not now, because whose proof of funds are you showing, right? Who's actually the buyer? Well, your cash buyer. Well, now the argument is, well, then you're not a principal. You're brokering for your cash buyer now.
Yeah,
Is
relationships.
the
will-
argument that can be made.
right, but the relationships would start to change. I mean,
You got to change a relationship.
Yeah, here's the thing, right? Business will always evolve in a way that's going to be towards things getting done.
See, this is such a great point. I want to just lead into this because this is a really good point. Everybody gets afraid when like Joe Biden is the president. Oh my gosh, taxes this, taxes that. My guys, smart people always adjust where they
We figure out a way.
we figure out a way.
Wealthy people
All-
people figure out a way.
Wealthy and intelligent,
Successful.
resourceful people always find a way. And that's why being an entrepreneur is the best, is because we go create industries based on new regulation.
Mhm.
And so what happens if regulation happens, the industry will change. How would a relationship change with a cash buyer and myself?
They become your lender.
Oh,
Essentially, what
Interesting.
happens is they
become a
become
lender.
a lender to you,
Or a partner.
or a partner, or a limited, or a small JV partner
Mhm.
for the time.
okay.
And then once that transaction has taken place, the partnership is dissolved. Or
Yeah.
if it's by way of them being a lender, you would either they'd come on with a deed of trust, and then you would have a deed in lieu, and they deed them the
Dismiss it.
property.
Yeah.
at
Okay,
the
so
end of it.
I'm not even worried about the assignment side personally, because I think that a double close or a relationship like that would evolve easy to solve. You do transactional funding, you're going to see a lot more transactional funding companies pop up, or existing companies that are lenders like Cap Fund One, a
Right.
friend of yours. They might go, you know what, we're going to start doing transactional funding as an arm of our business because this has become a thing.
Because it's an
Yes.
opportunity.
I'm not overly worried about assignments. I think that there's going to be a solution there that
Totally.
doesn't disrupt the industry. I'm more worried about the marketing side of things, because I'm direct to seller. He's not direct to seller, right? I'm cold calling, I'm texting. We do a little bit of direct mail in very niche markets, or like we pull down our list, we niche it way down, and we do direct mail. So if I'm not a licensed entity, I can't go out there and just market in any market. I can't go to Atlanta and call people because now I'm a predator.
Mhm.
So would a National Association of Wholesalers lobby against those laws and say, hey, look, these other people are doing it?
For sure. I mean, part of this has to be a legal fund, because we've got to be able to fight some of this and stand up for some of it and do what's right on our side, right? So, but that's what an association does. It's gonna have those things in place. Like, hey, this thing's coming up now in this new city or this new state. We send our representation to the table and we say, this isn't right, and challenge it and
Mhm.
fight it
Mhm.
and maybe reverse some of this. Some of them, like Atlanta, that needs reversed. That needs challenged.
Right.
That is just completely
Yeah.
blatant, wrong.
It's wrong.
Totally
It's
wrong.
Mhm.
I'd
Mhm.
love to just have a lawyer go in there and sue that for everything
you
it's
wonder-
worth,
you
because
wonder
it's not
how-
right.
You wonder how strong their defense would be, or if they're just like, I'm going to file this and it's going to go because there's nobody stopping me.
If
There's
I were
no
legal, I would say,
counter-argument.
show me an example
Right.
of these claims
No, but
you're
I'm
making.
I'm just wondering, like,
Case
if you go,
closed. I mean,
if you do have representation, go into Atlanta and pick this thing apart. Do they have the time to keep I'm talking about the lawmakers or whoever's putting that that bill or that act or whatever the hell it is on the table. Like, are they really going to defend their work that much, or they're just going to be like, whatever?
Yeah,
I'm off to something else.
Correct. I think that's what happens when you are unopposed.
Right.
You can do whatever you
Easy
like.
peasy.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's what Jerry's talking about.
Yeah.
Is creating opposition.
Right.
Creating a stance.
And the thing is I'm super busy in my business. You guys are super busy in your business. The last thing anybody has time to do is go do some, ideal cause. But I'm willing to do it. And I've talked to you guys. You guys are willing to do it. We've got a board of directors of other people in this industry. There are so many great guys that you guys know that are industry leaders and influencers in the wholesaling industry that are willing to dedicate time and energy and resources to put into this. It's a nonprofit. We're not going to benefit from it. We're not making money from this. It's got to stay nonprofit. We all have our own promotional things and software and training and coaching, right? But that's not what this is.
Here's why I got excited when you brought this up to us a couple of months ago, just saying, hey, this is a problem. We need to get together. In the state of Texas, okay, there is legislation that's currently being challenged by a group of guys that got together. Okay, they call themselves the Texas 100. Okay, what happened is legislation came in and said lease options and executory contracts like agreement for sales, contract for deeds, these things are illegal in Texas. And the reason why that happened is because there were consumers that complained about something happening. Some guy that was doing lease options didn't have his properties insured. So a bad apple ruined the entire state of Texas in terms of lease options, et cetera. Now, what happened is there was a handful of investors like John Jackson, smart guys, that came in and go, I'll show you how to do lease options around the legislation, right? Again, evolution, adapt, correct, and continue. Yeah. But it's a little bit of a headache. And so what him and Scott Horn and a couple of other guys did is they collectively got together a bunch of creative finance investors, and they went and lobbied against this legislation with great success. Yeah. And they organized. They organized. And I watched this happen, and I'm like, you guys changed. And you know what's funny is the legislators are like, yeah, we really honestly don't care. Yeah. We had to put this legislation in place because somebody was complaining, and it was unopposed. And
another,
it was unopposed.
Another
Nobody
great example.
Was collective.
I don't know if you guys know this. I haven't talked to you guys about this, but I don't know if you guys know. But the recent Biden bill really attacked self-directed IRAs.
Oh yeah. I saw that.
They wanted to take the control out of the IRA owner on investments. I mean, do you know how huge that is?
Most of my private lenders do it through their self-directed. So you're saying that they would take their ability to make a decision where their investments go. Yeah. I mean, and it went completely untalked about. No one. Is it because a financial advisor lobbyist is saying, we want financial advisors to get their piece.
They get commissions from that, right? So I don't know if you know, there's two guys, John Heyer and
John Heyer's a brilliant guy.
And Watson, Jeff Watson.
Jeff Watson, he's part of the Texas 100.
Okay.
Super smart guy.
Those two guys are both lawyers. Yep. Both advocates for real estate industry.
Yep.
They put in so much effort into fighting that. And they went to Washington and they got everyone around it. And they got people calling Congress and everything. And they got it removed. But they put in of their own time and their own just to protect.
You know Jeff Watson. Do you remember?
Yeah, I know.
He's Ohio. He's licensed in Ohio. Yeah, great guy.
He lives in Texas though.
No. Okay, I don't think so. I think he lives in Ohio. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Lives in Ohio. Great guy.
Part of the multipliers.
Yeah. Okay, then I don't know Jeff.
The point I'm making here is somebody willing to fight for that cause stood up and they got it pulled out and they saved the self-directed IRA. But who's going to do that? Who's standing up for us? We have to.
The leaders of this industry have to.
So, with this said,
yes,
Jerry, what are we proposing?
Okay, so we are in the early makings of the association. It's a 501c3. It's been formed.
Nonprofit. Meaning
Yep.
there's not four guys here sitting trying to make a profit off the situation.
Nonprofit.
No, what we're doing is we're creating a bunch of fear, and then they'll have to join, and we'll make a bunch of money. That's what we're here for. That's what we're doing on a Friday afternoon,
guys. There's brand awareness, right? This is good branding to do this for sure.
Yes.
Right. And that's how I'm looking at it. Like, okay, what's the side benefit of doing this? Well, hopefully the entire industry looks at this room and everyone else that wants to get involved and says, wow, those guys are cool. Look what they're doing. To
They're
help.
changing the industry.
Yeah,
They're
look what
making,
they're
they're
doing to
standing
help.
up for the little guy.
Yeah, I want to know more about them. Right.
Right.
So it's called the National Real Estate Wholesaler Association. That's the formal organization. If you go to the abbreviation, so it'd be NRE, National Real Estate, NREWA.org. Then we've got a basic website we've got live right now. There's a join now. That's going to put you on a list. And then that puts you in our newsletter, and we're going to let you know as we progress. We're not ready for dues. We don't have training yet in there, and we've got to get to work. Like with us and the rest of
who would you end up hiring? Like a Jeff Watson, or what do you do?
Yeah, so lawyer. Yeah. Legal representation is doing all of it. We're working on the bylaws right now. There's going to be a board of directors of 9. There's going to be an executive team. There's going to be honorary board members that don't have voting rights, but we want to reach out. I mean, our goal between us would be, let's get every single influencer in this space that has an audience, somebody that listens to them, and get them behind with us on this cause, right?
So mass adoption.
Mass adoption.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to start to create formalized training. We're going to have to come together as a body between us and everybody that's a director and say, how do we want track to look? How do we want earnest money? Like, how do we create a standard for all of these things that we all probably do a little differently, come together on that. And we're going to put that out, and we're going to create certification. So you can go, as if you're a member, you can go through that training, take the test, and get the certification. It's not going to mean anything, I mean, other than to us.
I think it does mean something, because when you're JVing with other wholesalers, you want to know that they're using the same contract. Correct. And you're on the same page. I get people that are like, hey, Pace, will you look at this assignment? It doesn't seem like this favors me at all. Right. So this actually protects other from each other.
Yeah.
Right. And this isn't just about the NAR. This also is about operating with JV and all these people on the same exact playing field.
And look, it's going to be benefit driven. Like we have to charge dues, whatever those are, a couple $100 a year, whatever they end up being, you know, and you'll get a lot of benefit from that, because you're going to get on the same page with our industry. You'll be certified now. There'll be best practices. We're going to have a code of ethics that we all follow. Here's our code of ethics. So when someone comes and says, hey,
dispute resolution.
Yeah. Dispute resolution. We're going to have a part of those dues are going to go into a legal fund so we can fight this stuff when it comes up. Right. So we have a seat at the table. We're going to do all of that.
Are we going to have a convention in Puerto Rico?
In Puerto Rico.
Or Montana.
Or Montana.
At the lake house.
At the lake house. Sure.
They got to change the name to Jerry Lake. You're going to own the whole lake pretty soon.
Right. Yeah. So that's what we're doing.
So NREWA.org.
Yep.
And why is it .org, not .com?
That's typically what they do with trade organizations.
Well, .org also means it's a nonprofit. Right. Typically people that are not making a profit. So this is a nonprofit. So the money that comes in is not going to building another lake house for you.
Correct.
It's going to pay for legal representation, additional certifications and training and best practices and all of those things.
Now, at some point, directors and members can receive salaries. That's part of a nonprofit. You're allowed to get
you'll
salary.
have to have people that get paid to run the operation, obviously, right?
Yeah. But I mean, initially, none of us are looking to draw from this, right? Like, we're just trying to make this a place that we can that our kids can grow up in. Like, I want my kids to grow up in this industry.
Likewise.
I know, Pace, you're not done making kids, but when you are done
that's
making
why I bought
kids,
your house, bro. I gotta have 10 kids. I walk around the house. I'm like, why is that bedroom empty?
1,000 square feet each kid.
That's right.
I mean, that's what it is.
Seems reasonable to me.
Yeah.
So that's it. We're going to do this. It's actually happening. Like, we've been talking about it, but it's actually happening. We're live. So guys, go to that .org, the NRE, man, I can never say it. NREWA.org, and click that join now. You'll get on a list. Nothing's happening yet. Like, we're not there yet, because we got to get, the bank account and a shopping cart and all these things done. There's a ton of work to do, but we're going and we're doing it, and it's happening this year.
What's the first order of business?
Well, I think if we're gonna have membership and dues, we got to figure out, well, what does a member get?
Right.
Okay.
So we got to create. I think the first place we start, and I've got a list of just ideas. We need to sit down and we got to come up with best practices. Like, what are the best practices? What's the right way, the wrong way to do this? And then I think we need to put together training to show people how do you do these different things? What's the right way to tell a seller something and not to say it this way? All those things we have to come up with.
Can you take, so I just had this thought, there's going to be transactional funding companies that are going to be like, I want to get behind this because I want to be somebody who funds these people's transactions. Can NREWA take in donations or raise capital from like a sponsor that wants to come in and sponsor this organization?
I don't know all of those things, but we'll do it right. We'll do it right. Whatever a 501c3 trade organization can do and should do, that's how we're going to do it. It's going to be completely legit trade organization representing real estate wholesalers. So we'll find those things out and we'll do those things.
What about building a website? Because nobody's ever done this.
Built a website.
Nobody's ever built a website where there's all the wholesale transactions on one platform, like an MLS. Is that a possibility?
I mean, it'd be a big undertaking, but I mean,
let's
the sky's the limit.
Going first, and then
the sky's the limit.
But these are the types of things that an organization could accomplish.
I literally think if we have the right outreach and the other people that have influence make this an effort, I don't see why we couldn't have a few 100,000 wholesalers
100%
that are a member of this very quickly.
Can we just get like half of your YouTube channel and get them on there?
I hope so. But do you know what kind of, I mean, there's power in numbers. How can anyone just dismiss us when we have 300,000 members?
You can't.
You can't.
You can't.
They will have to listen to us.
Well, I think the most important thing is I think everybody in this business wants to sleep well at night. Everybody wants to not worry about, are they going, is there going to be one thing that happens that stops me from making the income that I'm making right now, or I'm getting into this, is it worth it? Because all of a sudden things are going to change and I hear things are going on. You know, if you've got something that's a stable foundation where we're all squatting up, I mean, this is our philosophy. This is the philosophy.
Yeah, guys,
we talk about
a lot of people are saying,
Monday.
let's effing go. Dope. This is sick. Just signed up. Throw some of those on the screen, brother.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys. Throw that on there. I want people to see the comments, because the challenge is when you're doing a live with 1,000 people, sometimes you've got some on my YouTube channel, some on yours, et cetera, et cetera. And so people are not seeing all the other comments.
Okay.
They're only seeing the comments of the one channel that they're currently sitting inside of. So see, there's even people in our Facebook group and stuff like that. So guys, if this is something this is so damn exciting, think about standardizing a contract, standardizing the way earnest money is handled. Even title companies would be like, thank goodness you guys are now unified.
So Pace, going back to what you're saying, I mean, as a member, you better believe, guys, that we're going to be bringing so much value.
Oh
so
my
if there's
gosh.
something we can do, like maybe a proof of funds letter, whatever things are that we can bring into the membership. Basically, the way I look at it is if you're paying some kind of dues to the association, you're going to get 10 times the value or 100 times the value, because that's how we all live life. Like everything's a value add. I don't do anything that's not huge value, and you guys don't either. So we'll find those things out, and we'll make this such a blessing to the community.
I was at a meetup like 6 months ago, and I asked this guy, I go, what do you do, man? What are you into? What catch me up to speed? What are you doing? He goes, I'm just a wholesaler. And I was like, ouch, bro. Don't say you're just a wholesaler. Like, say that with pride. I think people—
Hold your head up, man.
Hold your head up. This is the greatest industry to be in. I think people sometimes have that feeling because real estate agents or other people make them feel that way. Like, oh, you're a wholesaler. Bro, like, where do you think fix and flippers get their projects from?
Right.
Holy crap, bro.
You're the most valuable person in the entire equation.
You're giving 50 people the ability to make a paycheck on a transaction, but you're treated as the lowest form on the transaction. And it's because we have no representation.
Right.
I think a lot of people would feel proud to be part of NREW.org. NREWA.org.
National Real Estate Wholesaler Association.
Love it.
That's it.
So guys, we've got a tattoo artist over here in the back. The four of us are going to get NREWA.org tattooed on our chest.
We need to have an album cover. Eric's got to take a photo of us to make it look like an album cover.
You're going to go face, right?
Yeah,
You're
so
gonna
my
go
You're
eyebrow?
going to have a tear?
Neck.
You're going to do the neck?
Yeah, you're the neck.
Oh, that's sensitive.
This is incredible, guys. Jerry, absolutely, probably one of the most important conversations I think we're going to have all year.
Yeah.
And I think that this conversation isn't going to end. It's going to continue. And so I believe that very likely in a quarter or sooner, we need to reconvene again and we need to give a progress update.
Yeah.
To the people that have been tuning in.
Yes.
As to where we've made it, what we've put into action,
Next
and
steps.
what the next steps are.
And I'd love to have, I mean, we really need to have a way people can get involved. I've had a lot of people say, what can I do? What can I do to help?
Right.
And let's find those.
First and foremost, join. You know, when it becomes available, go to the website right now. Join.
Does it cost any money to join the waiting list?
No, it just puts you on a list.
Okay, so NREWA.org. NARSWA.org. Join the waiting list. They're going to be part of a newsletter. They'll get updates of what's going on.
When we're ready to formally become a member, pay annual dues or whatever, and have benefit now from that. Yeah. So that's just the next step. But it's amazing to think we're actually like here. It's a real thing.
This is exciting.
It's a real thing now.
I'm excited.
This is a legacy too. I want people to look back one day and say, thank you guys for saving this industry that was about to go down.
Make it better.
And make it awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we're just we need 400,000. We need other people to be involved, be excited.
NARS 1.5 million active members.
Right.
That's active members paying dues. So
yeah, I love it.
That's where we're going.
Okay, hey, can we go through the comments just real quick? I want to see what kind of love and questions we've got in here. Let's just throw a bunch of random ones on the screen.
I buy houses.
Ephraim says, you guys brought excellent value. I'm down to help. I'll speak and be a face. You guys brought excellent value today. Thank you. 3 of you are my mentors, Jerry, Jamil, and Pace. Thank you so much. This is awesome idea. Wholesale civil rights. Joined Maru Estates LLC.
Nice.
Boom. Guys, in the comments on the side, it's free to join. We've got 1,000 people between Instagram and YouTube. How many people have signed up at nrewa.org for this? Let's see in the side chats. Type in me. I want to see you guys fill that up and encourage other people. What I find is it's interesting. We do a lot of lives, Jerry. I do 3 lives a week.
I know.
And what I find is that 100% of people get excited about stuff like this. They want to be a part of it, but they won't take 1 minute, literally 1 minute to go sign up for something.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, I go, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Right.
If you're not willing to at least join a waiting list and get part of an email update letter, are you really part of the solution or are you just consuming content?
Right.
Guys, don't ever just be here to consume content. We want action takers.
There we go.
This is a completely free organization, or at least a free sign up. At some point, there will be dues as it gets more formalized and gets more organized. I think even I'm thinking about when you release some of my favorite videos you make on your YouTube channel are hey, here's new legislation coming out for texting and cold calling and all that kind of stuff. Imagine this organization having full-time people just researching all the laws and all the things that are going on. And
the challenge, one of the biggest challenges is real estate law is governed at the state level, which means every state is going to have their own nuances. So we are going to have to say every state, here's how currently it's done in your state.
Right.
And you need to know everybody right now, everyone should know how they should operate ethically and legally in their state.
So Jerry,
we're going to have to do that. That's
you
gonna be
and
a big
I do,
undertaking.
You and I do a lot of creative financing. Okay. Are we going to put creative financing into this as well? Because you do wholesale creative finance deals, wholesale sub 2, wholesale seller finance, wholesale novation agreements. These are wholesale
that's all part of
transactions.
the acquisition side. So it's got to be.
It's got to be. So guys, everybody that's my sub 2 student, just so you know, if you do not sign up for this, you're getting a karate chop directly to the neck.
And if you're an astro flipping and you don't sign up, you're going to get astro flipped.
That is correct.
That sounds painful.
Yeah.
Guys, our entire organization is under attack. I'm watching it. Atlanta, my favorite city. When Jamil and I know we're going to speak on some stage in Atlanta, I get all giddy and excited. When I heard Atlanta was cracking down, it hurt. I'm like, whoa.
Especially the whole predatory.
Oh, it's
was
trash.
So sad to see. It was so disheartening. Totally.
A lot of people signing up, guys. Don't be a consumer of content. Be part of the solution. Let's go to NREWA.org.
Your number matters. Every single number matters in this. It's huge.
Right.
So get your wife and your kids, your dog, everyone sign up. No.
Jerry, you've been releasing stuff on your YouTube channel about this, and you're going to continue to release stuff on your YouTube channel about this. When is your next video coming out about this?
Well, the big one I just did was yesterday, day before.
2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days ago. And I covered a lot of these issues we talked about. I talked about Kansas City and Missouri in that one, because that's happening this year. They both said, Kansas City and Missouri said, they are introducing legislation in the next session. I don't know when that is. I want to find out. But it's getting proposed in both those states to mandate licensing and whatever else they pass. Who knows?
Right.
So that's 2 states right there, and everyone's talking about this at the state level. So it's.
I think personally, I am excited about all of these things. I'm very excited about it, but I'm really excited for the immediate benefit that other wholesalers will have with working with each other.
Yeah.
I see so many people treating each other in this industry because they have different contracts or they have different earnest money requirements or whatever it is. There is no standardized way to handle this. It's like one guru says this, the other guru says that. Then they're basically battling. Essentially, you need to get all the educators and influencers out there all on the same page.
Yes.
We're not talking how to close a seller, right? Like let your individual influencer teach you those types of things. But we're talking about how the process and the transaction should be handled legally in the transactional part.
Legally, morally, and
ethically.
Well, I think it's the community that has to get the gurus to get on board.
That is exactly
You know,
a good
it's
point.
not
That's a
going to be
great
us.
point. No.
Yeah.
It's not going to be us going and like, hey, bro, like use this contract.
Yeah.
It's going to be a standard. It's going to be a standard, just like it's a standard across the country with different real estate contracts for different states for the Association of Realtors.
I know
You know what I
personally
mean?
that when we standardize a contract and somebody sends me an assignment that's not the standardized assignment, I'll say, resend that with this assignment. I will just absolutely put my foot down. I won't do business with you. I won't do JV unless it's on the standardized contract. It just doesn't make sense. Hundreds of different people are using hundreds of different contracts.
I mean, that's just one great example.
Yep.
Love it.
Awesome. Jamil?
I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy about this. I think it's going to change the narrative. I think it's going to
I mean, you're the
equalize
biggest,
things.
right?
You do
I mean, you're
hundreds
more-
of transactions a month.
thousands a year, right? So, I mean,
we
this-
did $8 million in profit this year.
Right.
This is a huge thing.
Right.
We're looking for donations at nrewa.org.
And that was just in our wholesale business, not our franchise.
Right. Right. Awesome.
Wonderful, guys.
Good.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
all for
everybody.
tuning in.
Listen, we love you guys. Thank you for tuning in.
And
Really, really important. I know it was just popped into your day, but
And let's keep this conversation going.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. You
Yeah.
guys talk about it. I'm going to keep talking about it. Let's get everybody on the same page with how important this is.
awesome.
If you need comps, batchleads.io/email. Bye.
See you guys.